Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Edward Willows. Welcome once again to the program. And you're probably wondering why I am dressed in this attire with my Mayberry tie and my Andy Griffith hat. Well, that is because today we have a very special guest that I am honored to have, and I cannot even believe she is here, but she is the lovely Dixie Griffith, who is the daughter of the late, great Andy Griffith. Dixie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, I cannot believe that there would be anyone on this earth that does not know or ever heard of Andy Griffith. If they are living under a rock. And you have been living the life being Andy's daughter. So I guess the first question is the obvious one that everyone wants to know. What was it like to be Andy Griffith's daughter?
Well, I guess, it was like every day was a wonderful day, an adventure. I was so young when the show started that I really didn't know he was famous. And to me, he was my dad, and we did, fun things on the weekends. He went to work in the morning, he came home in the evening. And to me, it was ordinary. I didn't know anything different. I didn't know anything different until somebody told me it was different. Until somebody told me he was famous.
And when they told you, what was your reaction? Like, what? Who?
Well, I don't actually recall that precise moment, but things were a little different for us because we traveled back and forth to North Carolina, and we did things that I don't think other kids did. Going to Las Vegas and different places when he would do shows. And, I just, it was like, oh, okay. And I guess, another thing that really struck me is when we would go out as a family, people would come up to our table at a restaurant and ask for my dad's autograph. Or, in those days, people didn't carry around phone/camera.
Now, your dad started in the business, when television basically was born in the 50s. How did all of that come about, or what was he doing before TV? How did the Andy Griffith show materialize for him?
And he was in the music department at school, and he ideally wanted to be in the ministry. And when he was a freshman in college, I have a letter that he had written to his mother, my grandmother, saying that he was in his dorm room and he could hear singing down below. And it was like a chorus of men singing, and my dad just kind of fell in love with the music. He did learn how to play the trombone when he was growing up in Mount Airy. And he, changed his major to music. And he met my mother through the Carolina Playmakers at Chapel Hill, and ended up doing the Lost Colony Outdoor Theater, which has been going on. This is the 85th season for that. Both he and my mom had significant roles at one point or another in the 5 years they were in the show. And kind of one thing led to another. They went to New York. I think an agent found him. He did Broadway, and it kind of skyrocketed from there in the late 50s.
Now, it's amazing how the success of the show is still today. I mean, you have little children watching the Andy Griffith show. And I mean, it's amazing. And the show is doing yet great in the ratings and all that. What do you think was the success behind that show? Obviously, your dad was a major input, but do you think it was just the down-home flair that people like? What do you think made it what it was?
Well, I think the simplicity of it and also the wholesomeness definitely had something to say. It was very pure of heart, I think. And, there was always a moral story in there somewhere, and it was clean. You know, there was nothing off color about it. It was definitely family oriented. You know, and there was the foil of Barney to Sheriff Taylor's wisdom, and every character had a beautiful you know, aura to them, if you will. You know, they all had heart and soul, and you know, it was just lovely.
Yeah, and every member of the cast, I mean, all the way down to Otis, the drunk, had a pivotal role in the show. It's amazing. It always amazes me. You can talk to anyone on the street and I hear, oh, you know, Floyd the barber, oh, Otis the drunk, and then of course Andy and Aunt B and Opie. And it was amazing how those characters gravitated to the show, that everybody remembers them and they played such a pivotal part in the show.
Oh yeah, yeah. They were all characters, you know. I mean, it was, I think, you know, you hear people talk about it's an ensemble show, like, you know, Friends, or I can't think of another one except that one at the moment. But it was an ensemble show. Everybody was important, and like you said, everybody, you know, had pivotal roles, and you know, just the relationship between Andy and Barney. It was, I mean, it was just stunning to watch sometimes, because Andy would let Barney get in trouble, you know, and just kind of just let him, you know, let him play it out, let him come to his own conclusions of what was going on.
And also, Andy and Barney, of course, Don Knotts, they had a wonderful relationship outside of the show, because I read something which really touched me. Your dad and him, and correct me if I'm wrong, they were so close that later in life, when Don's health sort of was going, and your dad looked in and always made sure that Don had some kind of work. Is that correct?
Well, yes, actually, Don appeared on a few episodes of Matlock, and you know, he adored Don. They really were, you know, kind of joined at the hip, two peas in a pod, whatever you want to say. And I know my dad did go to the hospital just before, you know, Don had passed, and you know, he told him he loved him, and you know, it was really a beautiful relationship that they shared.
Now, what was life like filming the show? First of all, were you ever on the set?
Never.
Never. Okay. Did Dad talk? I mean, was it a long day? What was sort of the routine to film an episode?
Well, so from my understanding and well, I can't say recollection, other than, you know, when I got up for school, my dad was already gone, and he got home usually around dinner time. But they would, you know, they would do table reads of the script at the studio, and then they would film one day a week. And I know that on the days he filmed, it was very long days. You know, he came home sometimes in, you know, full makeup, and not his costume, but you know, the filming days were very long for him. But he, you know, he loved it, and he'd have some of the writers like Jim Fritzell and Everett Greenbaum, who wrote many episodes, would come to the house and they would work on the scripts together. And I remember Aaron Rubin, he was like one of the producers. You know, he had an integral relationship with all the different key people in the production. And he was very hands-on. He loved helping to edit the scripts and, you know, throw in his own little things here and there. So, you know,
your dad seemed like he was a very meticulous man. To me, just by watching the show, you can see the seriousness of him, where he really cared what he was doing and loved his work. And I think that definitely showed on camera.
Yes, I think so too. Thank you for that. You know, he really was the consummate professional. You know, he kind of commanded, if you will, sort of that professional attitude from everybody. And I think that followed on through the entirety of his career. You know, up until his last couple of movies that he did. You know, he really kind of, that was, I don't know, maybe that was a comfort for him to have everything in place, to know that everything was going to go as scheduled, as planned. And he really did like to have creative, not control, but a creative say in how things played out. So yeah, meticulous is a word.
Yeah. And it's also very amazing because, as you know, the Andy Griffith Show, after the Andy Griffith Show came Mayberry RFD. After that show, your dad had his own production company. And then he went on to Matlock. And, Hollywood is, you can be up one day and boom, down the next. And how did your dad go on with this longevity? I mean, it was decades. He was always at the top. Andy Griffith's name was there somewhere.
Well, there were some years in there, probably somewhere about in the 70s, where he did several pilots for made-for-TV movies to see about kicking off a new series. And there were several TV movies that he did over the years, mostly, as I said, in the 70s. He did a few movies like Hearts of the West with Jeff Bridges and Blythe Danner, which was, I loved it. Angel in My Pocket, I think, was late 60s, maybe 69. I think it was after the show. A lot of folks were in that had something to do with Mayberry one way or another. But he worked really, really hard. And I think that it took a while for him to get back in the game, for Matlock, because Matlock, didn't appear until, 85?
Yeah, I was going to say late 80s, somewhere in that area. Yeah. And your dad was brilliant in that show too, as I remember. Did he ever say to you the difference, how he felt between Andy Griffith Show versus Matlock?
Oh gosh. Well, it was I don't recall if he was, specifically said, well, Andy Taylor was this and Ben Matlock was that. He loved Matlock. He loved the Matlock Show. And I think, he always kind of infuses some of his own personality or likes or dislikes, like the hot dog thing. Matlock was always eating the hot dogs at the hot dog. Well, he loved hot dogs, and, Ben Matlock was a little bit more laid back. He he was sharp as a tack. Brilliant. I think I would liken it to Columbo in a way. I loved Columbo growing up, and Ben Matlock kind of had that same sort of, I don't know if you'd call it swagger, but
persona.
Yeah,
exactly. Persona. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Now, did your dad ever mention, getting back to the Andy Griffith Show, one of his favorite episodes, something he really liked?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Every episode, every season, right?
I want to say, I think that one was Barney and the Choir, when Jim Neighbors, Gomer came in and sang behind the scene for Barney because Barney couldn't hold a note. And so in came Gomer and was singing this beautiful solo. And of course, Barney thought he was singing because I did.
I remember that episode.
Yeah, and I think that may have been up there with maybe his top 5, only because he loved Jim Neighbors' voice and he loved Dawn, and they really just were a lot of friends. And
And it amazes me how, from your dad's show, the Andy Griffith Show, the spinoffs of Mayberry RFD, Gomer Pyle, they were all Mayberry related, everything. How did all of that go? Was it same staff, same crew? Was it your dad's production company? Because I know on Gomer Pyle, you'd see Aaron Rubin. And you'd see Aaron Rubin on your dad's show. So was it sort of like a big, like back in the day of Petticoat Junction and all the CBS shows, they were all sort of like themed, I guess you could say?
I honestly can't really speak to that, other than I think that they may have shared the studio, the lot, but I think everybody had their own thing happening because, Gomer Pyle was going on concurrently with a few, years of Mayberry.
Mhm.
And so, and then, well, Mayberry RFD took place, of course, after. And I don't know. I would imagine they probably did use a lot of the same crew
Mhm.
for RFD.
Mhm.
I really don't know.
Mhm. Now, let me ask you, let me ask you one thing that you would want to tell us that we would be shocked to know about your dad.
Oh gosh. That people would be shocked to know.
Mhm. Or I guess,
Well,
I can
okay.
rephrase it.
I've got one for you.
Go
He
ahead.
was a very poor sport when it came to playing volleyball, and he was highly competitive. And we would play on the beach in the summers. We'd go on picnics on our pontoon boat. And my dad was a sore loser. In fact, you might be able to say that maybe he kind of bend the rules a little bit.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't know.
All right. And was he anything like Andy at home?
Oh, you mean was he like Sheriff Taylor at
Yeah.
home?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, maybe in the discipline area, I mean, I remember cringing at when I would watch episodes where Opie kind of got in trouble. Oh, I felt it. I felt his pain. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
you didn't want to cross my dad too much. I
Yeah.
mean, he was pretty strict.
Yeah. Now, has your dad done any hobbies, anything outside of show business?
Oh gosh. Well, he loved to garden. He really, really did. I mean, I remember growing up. He liked to be in the yard. He liked to get his hands dirty. He loved planting flowers. We had rose bushes. In fact, at our house in California, one of the houses in California, I remember I may have been in trouble and I may have been punished, but I had to help him plant an entire rose garden. And maybe I wanted to, I don't remember. But, we planted this huge rose garden. It was just so beautiful. So he really loved that. He loved flowers. He loved wildlife. He did wood carving as a hobby, or not wood carving, woodworking. He had a little workshop at the house, and he loved to make little yard things that would spin around. He would cut them with the saw and then paint them, and they usually had moving parts. Excuse me. And so he kept himself busy.
Mm-hmm. And also want to just get back, like we were talking about everything from that show, spin-offs, all that, not to mention all the memorabilia. I have the tie, the hat. I came across some of these items. Look at this. Andy Griffith trading cards. I could not believe it. And I love this. DVDs in a lunchbox.
You can get anything you want. I mean, it's amazing, everything that's out there.
Oh yeah.
Wonderful items and the
And
book.
look at this, the Andy Griffith calendar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it is amazing how the show has taken a life on of its own. Now, have you ever met any of the characters? Obviously, Ron Howard, correct?
Well, I can't say I know him,
Okay.
but I, of course, know who he is. I happened to be my dad's one time, after I'd left home and I was there and the phone rang and I picked it up and it was Ron Howard.
Yeah. And look at the success he has had in it all. Began with your dad's show.
Yeah. And I've had the occasion over the last several years participating in Mayberry events to see Clint Howard, who of course was little Leon in the show, but of course he's his own actor in his own right. And, he's got a lot going on, but I remember Don Knotts coming to the house and Ken Berry, who was in Mayberry RFD, and Jack Dodson, who played Howard Sprague, George Lindsay. so these folks, his friend circle, I guess, on the show, yes, but off the show as well. And they were a good group of folks,
And has it been for you a magical life?
Has it been a magical life?
Yeah. Put you on the spot there.
Well, I think every life has its ups and downs, and you learn your lessons, and I think you experience both sides of the coin. I have a good life. I've lived in Colorado forever now, for a really long time. Since 1983, I moved out here, and I have 3 daughters that are grown and 2 grandchildren, and that's pretty wonderful. I love that. And I have a special someone in my life, and I live in a beautiful area with lots of wildlife. In fact, I saw your cabin in the opening, and it's like, oh, I know that area. I know that bear. I've seen that part.
Well, I've got 2 you can't see, but there's deer over here and bears behind me too, in the sort of the Northwoods look, Well, listen, also, Dixie, before we go, today, the day we're actually doing this show, happens to be your dad's birthday. And he would have been today, how old?
96.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I have a little cupcake here, some candles without burning down the house. Yes, put on your hat. I'm going to light the little candles here, and I will tell you what, we will salute your dad, one of the greatest actors that has ever lived. And Andy, to you up above, I know you're celebrating over there. And he was just a wonderful gentleman. And let's blow out these candles, Dixie. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Hey, we did it. But anyway, yes, your dad has provided hours and hours of entertainment to the to the world, technically, because when I would travel, I would hear in Europe, oh God, Andy Griffith, I think it is just absolutely amazing. And I thank you for coming on the program, shedding a little light about your dad and what it was like growing up in the Griffith household. And just his career has always amazed me, and I'm sure many other people. The longevity and always remaining true to his roots and remaining in North Carolina. It was just the life and the lifestyle your dad led. And I think for that, he's to be commended.
Well, thank you, Mark. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly on that. So
yes. Well, I thank you for being on the show. You are always welcome back. Keep me posted of your future endeavors, whatever you will be doing, and all the best out there in Colorado with those bears.
Okay. Same to you, Mark, and be careful. Get some bear spray.